Never glad confident morning again. This was the phrase used by Nigel Birch in the Profumo debate of June 1963 to encapsulate the situation in which Prime Minister Harold Macmillan found himself. 4 months later, Macmillan decided to resign. I've always been struck by the similarities between Macmillan and Boris Johnson. They both went to Eton and Balliol College, Oxford, although Macmillan achieved a first-class honours degree and Boris did not. Macmillan led his party to their biggest general election victory in over 20 years. The campaign was fought on the underlying message, "You've never had it so good." Can you think of a more boosterish, Boris-type phrase than this? The European Union, or the Common Market, was central to both of their careers. Macmillan U-turned and decided that joining the EEC was in the country's best interest. And Boris U-turned and decided that leaving was in the country's best interests. Neither of these prime ministers had any great attachment to conservative orthodoxy. Never glad confident morning again perfectly sums up the predicament in which Boris now finds himself. And more of that later. But first, some good news for Brexiteers. Suella Braverman, the Attorney General, has announced that she will introduce a Brexit Freedom Bill, which will remove the special status and supremacy of EU law within the United Kingdom. This provides us with the opportunity to remove swathes of secondary legislation from the statute book, which is undermining our ability to strike a fresh and independent course. Suella is a Bruges Group speaker and one of the 28 Spartan Conservative MPs who consigned Theresa May's version of Brexit to the waste paper basket. Let's hope Boris wakes up soon and promotes her to a senior position in his somewhat lacklustre cabinet. Now, regrettably, the Northern Ireland Protocol remains a grave threat to the unity of the United Kingdom. We cannot have a part of the UK subject to a different Supreme Court from the rest of our country. Last week, Geoffrey Donaldson, the leader of the DUP, gave a comprehensive analysis in the House of Commons of the defects of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Surprisingly, the Prime Minister declared that he agreed with everything Geoffrey said. Boris must now follow through and give Foreign Secretary Liz Truss a much tougher negotiating brief for her dealings with the EU. It's now nearly 6 years since the British people voted to leave the European Union, and still much remains to be done. Where are the lower prices we were promised from reduced tariffs? I'm afraid that those who lobby on behalf of farmers and foreign car makers have been all too successful. And what has happened to that nimbler regulatory framework that we were promised? Unfortunately, it looks like big banks and insurers have stood in the way at the expense of boosterish startups. And what has happened to the pledge to reduce VAT on energy bills at this time of soaring prices? There are many policy issues that Boris needs to address, but the continuing saga of Partygate is undermining his credibility. There seems to have been a drinking culture at number 10 in the Cabinet Office for a number of years, even under the premiership of the sanctimonious Theresa May. The one potential charge relating to Partygate, which could prove fatal for Boris, relates to the alleged celebration party held in the Prime Minister's flat to mark the departure of Dominic Cummings. Everyone knew that domestic parties were contrary to COVID rules, and it's difficult to see how Boris could survive as Prime Minister, if in fact he played mine host. Dominic Cummings is a great self-publicist, but he is not a Conservative, and he dislikes most Conservative MPs. He successfully engineered the dismissal of Sajid Javid as Chancellor of the Exchequer and his replacement by Rishi Sunak. The campaign to leave the European Union took some 25 years, and during nearly the whole of that period, Dom was absent the battlefield. Boris's mistake was ever to employ such a destabilising figure at Downing Street in the first place. The local elections in May could decide Boris's fate, and there were two public issues of policy of real substance which need to be overcome. First is the increase in national insurance contributions, which will take place in April. The increase will mean that the marginal rate of tax for those earning only £25,000 per annum will rise to 33.33%. This flies in the face of well-established Conservative principles. Well done to Bruges Group speakers Esther McVeigh, John Redwood and Philip Davis in being amongst the 10 Conservative MPs who voted against this measure in the House of Commons. The Conservative 2019 manifesto ruled out a national insurance hike in black and white. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor broke this key manifesto pledge, claiming it is necessary to find a new mechanism to fund social care. But raising taxes on those working from very modest earnings cannot be justified as a way of paying for the care costs of asset-owning pensioners. Raising the tax burden to a 71-year high and breaking manifesto pledges is, as many MPs are now realising, politically toxic for the Conservative Party. The second change in April, which could further undermine Boris, is the increase in energy prices of up to 50%. Many will question why VAT is charged on these essential supplies now we have left the European Union. And Boris's decision to be an advocate for green energy might rightly or wrongly be considered as one of the reasons why energy prices are rising so significantly. Boris may find out, as Margaret Thatcher did in 1990, that the problem for leaders with large majorities is that there are more members of Parliament who are worried about losing their seats. The fences on this course are getting so high that even a political jockey with Boris's skills may not be able to stay in the saddle.